Ow! Fuck! Okay. And how about these two wires? Wait, the music stopped. Yes. Yes! That means I'm live. Okay. Hello there, dear listeners, survivors of the Wasteland. I'm your host. I haven't really thought of a radio name for myself. Give me a minute, folks. I can think of something real quick. How about, okay, what about DJ Badass? God, that sounds terrible. Okay, what about DJ Atomica? I feel like I've heard that one before. I think that one's already taken. What about DJ Rust? Now that sounds fucking doable. DJ Rust, I can work with that. And welcome to TOTW, Tales of the Wasteland, or that's what I'm calling this station from here on out. The name of the station was WGLO, before everything, before the apocalypse, before the end of the world, blah 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 blah, or whatever you want to call it, December 23rd, 2021. Wow, why do I still remember that? Anyway, purpose of this show is to share stories, tales from the Wasteland, to connect and inform people on what to do and what not to do in this new world of ours. Even though it's been like 10 years, hopefully people should have figured stuff out, but still, that's beside the point. Sadly, I don't really have any tales to tell yet, so instead, I'll give you a little rundown of who I am and a little bit of news too. Like most survivors, I was lucky enough to end up in a bunker and stayed in there for a good couple years, give or take about 5, until it seemed semi-safe outside, and when the eventual nationwide government broadcast finally came on saying, "Oh, it was safe outside. You can go out now." Ooh. From there, I started wandering around the waste for a good year or two, looking for a working radio station. Because before it all, I was a little interested in radio. It wasn't something I fully thought of, and especially with how things were going at the time, something I didn't really seem to be able to get into. But finally, stumbled onto this little old shack that's barely still standing. Then it took about 3 years to get the actual radio back up and running, because never really had any technical or specifically radio knowledge bestowed upon me. So I had to learn how to fix it with blood, sweat, and a lot of tears. I cried a lot when trying to put this damn thing together. But finally, after a good couple of months of messing with this mess of actually working on the place, I finally got up and running, and then after a couple of months of messing with the system itself, I was able to actually now, as you can tell, speak live and interrupt the automated system that is still somehow working. Since I got out of my concrete cell, I've encountered a lot of groups trying to make sanctuaries in this hellish land. Some with great ideas, and some that might not make it for a week, but still has somehow, surprisingly. I've also had some way too close dances with death from groups of people. One trying to change their whole bodies into mechanical nightmares, bandits lurking in junkyards, a mob, and then just straight up cultists. They seemed really nice, and they even offered me a place to sleep. Come to find out, there was a secret passage in the closet that led in the closet of the bedroom I was in, that kind of led to a sacrificial site of sorts. I just saw a lot of blood, a lot of bodies, and there was a lot of symbols on the wall, on the floor, and on the ceiling written in that said blood. But yeah, I can still see it very well when I close my eyes. Don't go to Nashville, and don't ever trust a Damien. Ooh, that would be a good story. A different time. I've also seen a lot of the effects from the nukes that still linger around here. For anyone that hasn't seen or is still in their bunkers, there seems to be 3 effects that the radiation has on people. First and basic one, in quotations, cancer. No other way to really describe it. I mean, that's kind of what it did before and what it still does now. I mean, it's just cancer. Second thing, it can, or at least the second and third thing, both of them can change people. Not in the way cancer does, but in the way of actually physically. Anywho's, the second one, it can change people into irradiated creatures. That's the difference between these 2 ways in cancer. It changes into creatures, not into sickly people. But yeah, it turns them into irradiated creatures that lose all their sense of humanity. The first of the 2, transformation starts with taking on too much radiation, obviously. But you'll start to see some of your blood vessels glow green, while occasionally spitting out greenish blood. Next, random spots on your body will have random obsidian rocks slowly forming out of your skin, while around the said obsidian rocks, your skin will start to slowly melt off. Then, it's just a matter of time when you start to hear and see things, and finally, after months, weeks, days, or even just hours fighting to keep some grasp of sanity, you'll lose your grip and then let the radiation use your body for its own purpose. You can, if you're lucky and strong enough, mentally speaking, be able to fully physically transform but still keep your mental sanity, while others, they still look themselves but fully lose themselves quickly and just become feral. It's a little rough. But after you do lose yourself, you just kind of become a watcher to what your body does, and really you don't have a say to anything. If you're lucky, your body will just shrivel up and let the rock mold you into a statue. Not, I think we all can imagine how that kind of goes. Especially if you're around people you care about, not the best. The other way that radiation will transform you is if you find yourself in the darkness with no way of getting out, like in a bunker, a metro, or in like the tunnels near Carbondale. And if radiation's leaking in, the radiation will change you to adapt to its surroundings. We don't have many bright scientists still alive, but we do have a handful that are actually looking into different ways radiation will change and adapt to being depending on its surroundings. So far, we only had the 2, which this one, it will first, you'll start to notice, since you're in the darkness, well, your eyes will eventually get sorted out and you'll be able to see somewhat, but the radiation will enhance it to where it's like you're able to see full picture, like fully. Like if it was daylight inside the dark metro, if that makes any sense. First you'll notice that your eyes will start to actually adapt to it, to the darkness, and you'll be able to see almost crystal clear, basically. And it'll be a lot harder to actually be able to keep your eyes open out in the light. You'll kind of, basically your senses will be swapped when it comes to darkness and light. uh, technically speaking. Darkness, it's a lot easier, and you can see almost crystal clear. Light, you'll become almost blind. Kind of like if you're in a... I guess that would... No. Huh. Imagine I said none of that. Just keep it simple. You can see in the dark. The sunlight hurts even more than normal to look at. Next thing you'll notice is the hair, your hair, both on your head and on your body, everywhere, will start to grow rapidly, and with that rapidness, the hair will start to form a lot harder. Kind of like pieces of hair on porcupines, how they're very sharp and pokey. Once again, like the last one of the radiation, like the last transformation of that radiation has. It's just a matter of time until you lose yourself. Days, weeks, months, years, seconds. You get the gist. Until you go feral. For these, at least, I've dubbed the poor souls as gremlins, because they look like more messed up gremlins from that one movie a while back ago. And, well, from first-hand experience, it's a lot easier to kill something that isn't human, and if you name it other than a human. Keep in mind that it's a creature, not pre-existing human. Yeah, they are a lot scarier, because they lurk in the dark. I've only encountered them once, and it was like an abandoned IKEA. Wait. Just realized, I do have a tale. I do have a tale to start this first official broadcast off. So, the story starts off around February of 2026, I want to say. I was still getting my bearings to everything, and, I did find this place, so I at least had somewhere of my own to call, but unlike now, it was a lot more holy and very less structured. It was slowly falling apart, so I decided to go to Chicago, specifically IKEA, to find resources to actually keep this place from falling onto me and killing me. But yeah, once I did, it's a long walk up from where I am, where that is, I'm not gonna say specifically. If you're close enough to hear the broadcast, good for you. I'm not gonna tell you where I'm at least yet. I'm not trusting people yet. Yeah, once I made it to Chicago, it was around late evening, so it was very much, the sun was barely above the horizon, and with some of the old buildings in Chicago, it wasn't making it over, so it was basically almost pitch black night. And I made my way to the IKEA, because I thought it'd still be wise-eyed to go into and I quote, pitch black IKEA with just a barely working flashlight. When I got to the front of the building, doors buried under dirt and a lot of rubble from the building itself. But me being me, I was very determined to work with this. So once I got everything removed and was able to actually crack a door open, I went in. Once I did, I felt like there was thousands of eyes burning into the back of my neck, which should have been my first red flag. But I continued on, because I am just that determined. And then what should have been my second red flag was the deathly silence that was in that building. Like, usually you can at least hear some distant sounds of people trying to get into buildings, of creatures walking about, blah, 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 nature, yada, yada, yada. No. It was very, very quiet. And I still decided to go in anyway. Walked in a little further and eventually made my way to the kitchen section, which forgot to mention while I was okay, I was looking for building materials specifically, and also food, specifically Swedish meatballs, which you might think they'd be out of date. Come to find out, they have no date. Weird. But, I haven't puked yet, so IKEA's just built different. IKEA Swedish meatballs are just built different. But, yeah. Made my way to the kitchen section when I noticed noise, once again, from the cupboards. And then the horde of gremlins decided to pop out of said cupboards and started their attack on me. There's about 12 of them. I couldn't really count all of them because, well, all of them went straight for my throat. Very quickly, very fast. All I could do was take 2 steps back and run. So I did. And ended up in the kids section of the store. I was lucky enough to find a bed to hide under. And at this point, some of the light from the moon that was creeping in, finally, I noticed finally, that some of the light from a crack in the ceiling, which was coming in from the moon, I guess. Yeah. We're just gonna keep going because I think that sounds right. It's a live broadcast, so I can't really go back on myself here. But yeah. And this is when I saw what I was lucky enough to hide next to. Which, first of all, I forgot to mention, the third red flag of this whole fucking story was the massive amount of skeletons, bones, and dried blood that was scattering the floor. There was a lot. And I was just lucky enough to settle right next to a kid's skeleton. It was, if it wasn't for the fact that I was being chased by hairy death goblins, I would have screamed. Anyway, I had to stay under the bed for about an hour until the gremlins finally gave up and went back to their sleeping dormant state. They may be able to see in the dark, but they are not the brightest light bulbs in the shed. A simple bed sheet to my right and child's skeleton on my left was able to protect me from being spotted. Once those little demons left, I made my way out from under the bed and continued to get the rest of my supplies. I was able to find, I think, a couple pieces of wood and a spare bed frame, not bed frame, but headrest. A spare headrest. Then I went up to the 3rd floor to see if my luck would continue, which at that point I noticed the smell. It was just horrendous. It smelled like copper, piss, and shit. Then I looked down and the floor was just covered in what I was guessing was blood and the last people who tried to scavenge this place for stuff. And right as I was about to get the hell out, my luck, I tripped on something. It was a damn leg. I let out a little yelp, and that got the attention of what I can only guess was the brute/leader of the group, or of the horde I dealt with earlier. And when I say it was a brute, I mean it. It was built like a true bodybuilder's dream body. I swear, the abs alone, my god, you could grind meat off it. It rushed me and shoved me into a display case. I kicked it away, and it grabbed my shirt, and once again, with my luck, always plays a major factor in a lot of these scenarios, my luck, my gun got loose from where it was supposed to be and fell to the ground. Next thing I know, bang. I officially at this point had my eyes closed, thought I got shot in the head, body, or anywhere and was just waiting for the pain. But then a minute passed, and then I noticed no pain and no movement. Open my eyes. I am looking directly into a gremlin who has the face of disbelief. I've never seen these creatures show any emotion, but when I say this thing looked dumbfounded, I mean it with 100% guarantee that it had the perfect face to describe what dumbfounded was. And then it fell back on its back, and that's when I noticed the blood draining from its skull. It got shot in the head by my gun that fell off. Lucky me. For obvious reasons, I just stood there with my jaw hanging because of how lucky I can't emphasize how lucky I was there. And then it reeled back in. I started hearing the rest of the horde slowly making their way up the stairs, and also realized that was the last bullet in my gun. So I quickly started looking around for an escape, and only found a giant hole that led out to a 3-story drop, and a little bit of wire exposed from said wall. Great. That's what I thought. Just great. Then, eventually, those little fuckers got to the 3rd floor and instantly spotted me. So, I ran and grabbed the wire and jumped. As I swung away from the building, I looked and saw that they were trying to stay from the moonlight, which is great. Then, as soon as I thought I was saved by the moon, one decided to be brave and jump for me. It grabbed my shoulders, causing me to let go of the wire. As we were falling, I was able to quickly rotate us to where I would land on the gremlin, and gremlin would land on the ground. And that's what happened. We hit the ground, and well, the gremlin may cushion my fall, but damn, it still hurt a lot. I looked around and to see if we were followed. Nothing followed us, which is great. And then I looked back at the gremlin, which the only way I can describe it is whatever was inside the gremlin was now officially outside of it. That's not how gremlins work. I can tell you that with a 100% fact. I was just covered with the blood of this gremlin and tired, but I had my supplies, so all ends well, I suppose. I decided to start making my way to one of the nearby settlements, the mall, to get a room and rest for the night. Simply put, the moral of this tale: trust your gut and never, ever go into a dark, abandoned IKEA. You will regret it. Anywho's, to finish this whole first broadcast up, I'll do a little bit of the local Wasteland news. I guess more broad Wasteland news, because there isn't really much local around me. So, as mentioned, or as now I'm going to be mentioning, there are a lot of settlements nearby, surrounding the Wasteland, because people do want to try to actually do good in this place and actually want to reconnect the world and all that. So, if you haven't heard, I'll give you a quick list and description of each one. A description of at least the most interesting ones that I've seen so far. First, and as already mentioned, the Mall, Chester's Bridge, the Boat, and Tower Rock. The Mall is a settlement situated in the Chicago Ridge Mall, which is on US 12, I want to say, on the southwest side of Chicago. It is the most developed town out of all of these, and even a good handful of stores are open there. Even an Auntie Anne's is somehow up and running there. Then there's Chester's Bridge, which is situated on Chester's Bridge near Chester, Illinois. A lot about Chester. South of the ruins of like St. Louis, and the first thing about it is that the mayor of this town is coincidentally also named Chester. This town is nothing. It knows nothing but Chester. I swear. The second thing is that unlike the mall, it just has a couple houses and a bar. It has kind of like a more very old Western feel around it. Third and finally about this town, the bridge is barely holding together. And when I say holding, anytime someone moves, the bridge moves. And then I quote, this bridge goes over the Mississippi River, I want to say. It's been a while since I looked at a map, and it's been a while since I've done my research on local rivers, so I'm not fully for sure. I just know it's a wide river, and that long bridge is supposed to support, well, originally supposed to support cars, but the moment someone like starts walking and it starts moving, it's a little scary. But Chester does want to actually Chester is promising to actually fix up the bridge, repair it somehow. I don't know how, but Chester, if you do hear this, I wish you the luck for that part. Then there's the boat that is a settlement that uses a pre-nuclear, pre-wasteland boat as its structure and floats up and down said Mississippi River. Mostly it goes between St. Louis and Minneapolis. And the name of this boat, I forgot to mention, is Enterprise. And it's like an old-fashioned steamboat, like those ones with like those turning wheel thingies at the back of it. I guess that's the best way to describe it. I don't really know what they're called. But yeah, they go between St. Louis and Minneapolis, making stops in between, like at both locations and in between. And the last town I mentioned, Tower Rock, which is a very small community. It's very recently started becoming, naming itself a settlement, is situated on an island in Missouri with the same name, Tower Rock. From what I was told, that the island is about 9 acres, and people who want to live on it have to wait on a list. It's about southeast of St. Louis, somewhat near Chester's Bridge. Then there are some towards the East Coast, but these are the only ones really close to the broadcast here, or at least close to ones I know. But then there's also some rumored ones to be on the other side of Kansas, but they're just rumors. As we all know, there's a whole Civil War II that kind of happened, and the west side of America, as far as I know, is a wasteland before the wasteland. To say that anyone's still alive on that side, I cannot tell, for the fact of the whole government wall that was put up in between the rest of the U.S. and like the borders of Kansas up north and south from there. I'm not very I can't really give a specific like where the borders, which states it goes through. I only know Kansas because it's like the only close one nearby. But yeah, there are rumors of settlements on the other side from people that said they've been on the other side, but can't really tell if they're true or not. But one of the rumors, the most interesting one I will say, is a settlement in Seattle, Washington that is, well, actually under Seattle. It's called the Underground Seattle, which is a city It's a network of tunnels where the old Seattle was before the Great Seattle Fire in 18,000s, I want to say. I'm not a history nerd, or at least I like to tell myself that. um, the city decided to just build everything above the old destroyed buildings of the town, but, with said rumor, um, the survivors of what was like newer Seattle decided to move down into the old Seattle, where I guess technically speaking it's a bunkered city now, which is, hey, if it's an actual thing, amazing, but never get your hopes high in this wasteland. That's all I can say about that. Finally, uh, if there's anyone that wants to, that has any shops, jobs, or really anything you want other people to know about, please write it down and go to one of the settlements that I mentioned before and post on a bulletin board or somewhere I'll notice it. Because, trust me, I would love to do ad reads for anyone with little to no cost, or like spread the word of your stories, jobs, whatever. I want to connect people. That's why I'm here. So, if you have anything, please write it down. Write down DJ Rust at like the bottom of it so I know it's specifically for me, and I'll do my best to read it. So, yeah, with that, I guess that's the end of the first broadcast. So, now I'll let you get back to whatever music was playing before. So, yeah. Oh, shit. I want to hit the mic. Sorry for that, listeners. And I just gotta take this wire and